Live in 3. Welcome, Greek U Nation, to episode number 219 of the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Ayalon, CEO of Greek University. I'm a speaker and a two-time author. Our second book, From Letters to Leaders, Redefining New Member Education and Leveraging Belonging to Eliminate Hazing, is available now on Amazon. Go and pick that up today. We call these episodes the Fraternity Foodie Podcast because there's nothing like great food to bring fraternity and sorority leaders together. Fun fact, today we're going to be talking about the First Amendment, which is neither left-wing or right-wing. It's for everybody. The 5 freedoms that it protects: speech, religion, press, assembly, and the right to petition the government. Together, these 5 guaranteed freedoms make the people of the United States of America the freest in the world. And given everything that's going on all over the world today, I thought it might be a fitting time to talk about the First Amendment. So let's tell you a little bit more about our guest. A native New Yorker, Zach Greenberg graduated from Binghamton University in 2013 and Syracuse Law in 2016. He developed an appreciation for free speech as the president of the College Libertarians and the Federalist Society, where he sought to bring those with divergent opinions together for debate and discussion. I've heard that before somewhere in the fraternal world. After serving as a legal intern for FIRE, he became a student attorney for the Criminal Defense Clinic, where he defended indigent Syracuse residents on misdemeanor charges. Outside of FIRE, you can find Zach on the ultimate frisbee field, around a poker table, or hovered around a chessboard. He serves as the president of the Philadelphia Area Disc Alliance Board of Directors and enjoys watching his beloved New England Patriots win Super Bowls. We'll see how much longer that continues without Tom Brady. We'll see about that. Now, up front, I'm going to tell you that FIRE is a nonpartisan, nonprofit organization. This is like the elephant in the room, that somehow FIRE is like some, I don't know, right-wing, entity that is, somewhere out there. Totally nonpartisan, totally nonprofit. So I just want to put that on the table right from the get-go so I don't get a bunch of angry emails. But I can't wait to talk more with Zach Greenberg. Welcome to the show, Zach.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Thank you for that wonderful bio and for pointing out that FIRE is in fact nonpartisan. We take cases on the left, on the right, all across the political spectrum to defend students' rights and free speech on college campuses.
I love it. I just want to put that up front, as like, hey, here's the warning. Here's, let's put everything on the table, because I think there's like so much out there. You talk about fraternity and sorority in terms of the stereotypes of what it means to be in a fraternity or sorority. I think there are stereotypes that go along with the First Amendment even, and it's totally, not a political thing at all. It's for everybody, every human being.
Yeah, it's for everybody. And it's funny because, people think that our staff is, these nonpartisan, but no, we have a diverse staff. We have people on the left and the right. We disagree about everything from our favorite sports teams to issues of increasing importance. But if you're going to defend the rights and civil liberties in America, you got to defend the wide array of them. You got to defend those that are maybe unpopular or maybe minorities, controversial, whatnot, because we believe in the principle of free speech, the First Amendment, that everyone has an equal voice to speak in a college campus.
Yeah, so important. And you know what? I'm a New York Giants fan. I mean, we beat Tom Brady twice in the Super Bowl. But it's okay. We can get along, right? We can have that debate on who's a better team, right?
That's stung a lot. Yeah, Eli Manning, man. Can't beat him. Just can't do it.
Man, a couple of great catches, and that was the end of those Super Bowl runs. Anyway, we could talk about, for days about the Giants and the Patriots. But listen, let's go back to the beginning. Okay. You decided on Binghamton University for your undergraduate experience. So I'm wondering, why was Binghamton the right choice for you?
Yeah, so, from Long Island, right? Definitely wanted to go to an NYU or Columbia or Harvard or Yale, but didn't have the grades for that, didn't have the SATs. So we liked Binghamton because it was a state school, it was affordable, and it's actually a really quality education. When I was there, that they took academics seriously. It was really competitive in terms of who got in. and what kind of experience you're going to have there. And I really loved it there because it was kind of a quaint upstate New York town, and it was on campus. It was quite the college experience. So I really enjoyed my my couple years there.
Yeah, you and I are alike in so many ways. I had a house in East Meadow in Nassau County for like 10
Oh,
years.
there you go.
And then I
Yeah.
ended up going to SUNY Buffalo. So believe me, I mean, it's the same script. I mean, it's just a carbon copy.
It was funny. I went to Binghamton, and we had a suite. We had 5 roommates, six guys in the same room, and all 5 of my roommates were from Long Island. I'm like, wow, I'm glad I went away to school. Really went far away to state New York to escape Long Island.
Totally. Yeah. I mean,
funny.
all of my friends at Buffalo were all Long Island guys. And I'm like, really? We had to cross the entire state, travel 8 hours, 9 hours in order to see each other. Come on now.
Buffalo's up there. It's even farther away than we are. Yeah, you guys are close to Canada at that point.
It is. Yeah, we were 20 minutes away from Canada. I mean, you take the bridge and you're right there. So, yeah, it was good times, and I don't regret it. I think it was a great decision. I think, in terms of economics, it was a great education at a low price. So
absolutely.
I got everything that I wanted to get out of that. Now, you joined Pi Kappa Alpha as a founding father. So why did you decide to become a founding father as opposed to joining any of the existing fraternities that were there at Binghamton? And what was that experience like for you?
I did. Well, my cousin, her fiance at the time, Ruben Rodriguez, was actually a recruiter for Pi Kappa Alpha, and he came to university. He knew me there, and I was actually the first ever Pike at Binghamton. Very happy about that. And it was great because we had this colony. We had the first initial group, and we were freshmen. And then by the time I graduated in 2013, we got our charter and became a full-fledged fraternity. And at that time, Binghamton was going through a lot of issues with hazing, with fraternities just not really being a quality organizations. And we wanted to create a group that would kind of be apart from everyone else, that would just kind of set the gold standard, set the high expectations for a fraternal organization at Binghamton. And I'm happy to say that, 8 years later, we're still kicking, we're still going, there's still students there, they still have their group. So it's great to see that all the work we put in laid the groundwork for a successful organization.
That's awesome. And you know what? I give that advice to anybody who asks. If you have the opportunity to be a founding father, go and take it. It's not necessarily the easiest road because you're really building things from scratch, from the ground up. There's not, a lot of infrastructure there. But I will tell you this, the ones who are founding fathers, they get such a great experience and they get such amazing resources and skills out of it. They're like hyper successful out in the real world. Like they do things that nobody else does. So I get the benefit of seeing both the undergrads start a new colony on a particular campus when I was with my fraternity and helping them expand to 4 campuses each semester. I obviously knew all of those founding fathers, and I've been tracking them over time. And it's like, what? Like, how is this possible that all of you are so super successful? It totally defies the odds, but it happens.
It's weird because you never see the fruits of your labor, right? You spend these years, this time and effort into creating this group, but then you don't really get to see how the 5 years later, the college students come back and enjoy it. So you're kind of building an engine that you don't really get to see the car running with, which is hard to convince college students to do that, right? Hard to convince them to be, hey, take your time and your effort to make this group that's not really gonna be able to enjoy because you'll be too busy, getting your philanthropy and your recruitment and all your budget straight. But it was a very rewarding experience. I would never change it for the world.
Yeah, you're better because of it. There's no question in my mind. I've seen it over and over and over again. So congrats to you for being the first Pike at Binghamton. That's a really cool trivia question that I know the answer to.
You got it.
That's very cool. And you went to Syracuse University College of Law. You were specializing in the First Amendment law. So why in the world are you so passionate about the First Amendment and this particular avenue within law?
Well, it's funny because when I was at Binghamton, I remember seeing this Christian fundamentalist preacher coming to campus right in the quad and talking about the sins of homosexuality, and drug use, and premarital sex, all these really unpopular viewpoints you can imagine at a pretty liberal college campus. And there were calls to expel this guy, to kick him off campus, newspaper, the governor, all like, just get rid of this guy. And I'm like, wait a second, that could be me. That could be any person out there talking about anything that's remotely controversial or offensive. And I realized that by defending his right to free speech, I was actually defending all of our rights, my friends' rights, everyone's right to speak about whatever they're passionate about. At that moment, I'm like, this is what I want to do. I want to be a free speech attorney. I got to go to law school. I got to do this. I got to somehow find a job that does this after I graduate law school. And at Syracuse, I wrote my college, my law school admissions essay about how I wanted to be a First Amendment attorney. And the admissions guy was like, nobody's ever written that before, right? No one really wants to be a First Amendment attorney. So I think it was kind of unique, and thankfully they accepted me, and I spent a good long time in upstate New York. Love it.
So let me get this straight. So you didn't even really agree with what this guy had to say on campus?
Oh, no, absolutely not.
You just believe that he had the right to be there and express his viewpoints. Is that right?
Yeah, just to go out there and say what he wants to say. And you can have counter protests. You can do whatever you want to, have a discussion, a debate, but just let the guy, have his say.
Yeah, well, good for you for realizing that. I mean, it's such an important piece that sometimes I feel like we lose sight of, and I think that story is important. So you've been working for FIRE for over 5 years now. Tell us and tell our audience, what exactly does FIRE do?
Yeah, sure. FIRE, the Foundation for Individual Rights and Education. We defend students' rights and free speech on college campuses nationwide. We focus on student groups, students, professors, and the freedom of association, free speech, and due process, the essential qualities of human dignity. And we're nonpartisan, we're nonprofit. We don't charge anything for our services, and we defend people regardless of what you say, as long as you're a student or a professor or student group on a college campus and your speech is protected by the First Amendment's freedom of speech. So we do private universities, public schools, we do all 50 states. We're nationwide, and it's a really rewarding job because every day is a new case, right? Every day you get a new instance of students being censored, being kicked off campus, professors being told what they can or cannot teach, and we will defend them. And we do it willingly and happily, and we're pretty good at it. We're doing this for 20 years already, and we have a good array of attorneys and good array of cases and communications teams that all help us defend students' rights and free speech on college campuses.
Wow, that's great. I mean, you and I got introduced by one of the listeners of Fraternity Foodie who had no idea that FIRE even existed. And he keeps telling me about, how I wish that I knew that this entity even existed. So I think we're just doing some education here to help people understand what resources are available, the fact that you don't charge for these services. I mean, that's really wonderful work.
Yeah, it's very rewarding because we want to help people that have lost their voice. We want to help people that have been kicked off or expelled from campus or suspended for protesting, for speaking out. A lot of times they don't know nowhere else to go. They can't afford an attorney. All their friends or family, universities have abandoned them. It's just us. So we're here in their corner. We will defend you. We'll defend your rights. We'll make sure that the principle stands, that you should be able to have your free speech rights on a college campus. And we'll do that 24/7, 365 days a year.
Can you tell us about some of the core programs that FIRE offers in terms of awareness, in terms of activism?
Sure. We have a bunch of programs. I do IRDP, Individual Rights Defense Program. We engage in direct advocacy on behalf of students, student groups to the universities. We write letters. We work with litigation to occasionally file lawsuits. We do public pressure as well. We have a whole communications team. Many times universities cannot justify in public what they do in private. So we will work with students to have press releases, to have blogs, kind of win the battle in the court of public opinion. And we also do educational workshops, know your rights workshops. We have a student network where students can get involved, come to conferences, learn about their rights. We have a policy reform team. They're kind of the good guys, right? They work with universities in the productive, positive manner to reform their policies that infringe free speech. And all these programs kind of work together in tandem to make these universities better places for free speech and to advocate for students' rights when universities do abuse them.
This is great stuff to know about. And I'm going to ask you a question. The first part I know the answer to. The second part, maybe I don't know the answer to. The first part is, does FIRE have any political affiliation? And then the second part to that is, why is it that FIRE is kind of pigeonholed into people thinking that it does have some political affiliation?
Thanks for asking. That's a great question. It's funny because, in America, people always have speech that they don't want to see expressed. There's always going to be some form of expression, some some category of speech that people want to see censored. Free speech is kind of the big umbrella that covers everybody, but the notion that all speech is popular and happy and not controversial is a bit far-fetched. So when we defend liberals, people think that we are liberals. When we defend conservatives, they think we're conservatives. When we defend an animal rights group, people think we're a bunch of vegans. We defend hunting groups, people think we're a bunch of carnivores. So it's really just a matter of people conflating the speech we defend with our own affiliation. And the reality is that we've defended everybody from every sort of issue you can imagine, whether it's affirmative action, Israeli-Palestinian issues, race issues, every sort of legal issue that's on a college campus. We've defended that viewpoint. We defended all viewpoints for all groups throughout our 20-year history. Right there in our case archive, right on the website, thefire.org, it's all right there. Not hiding the ball from anybody here. So we do have a reputation of being political in some circles, and that to me is a lack of understanding of how we operate, our case that we take, and our basic mission statement, that we defend the neutral principle, we believe, of free speech, of the First Amendment, which defends everybody equally.
You made some good points there. I mean, depending on how high profile the case is, people are automatically going to make assumptions because you're working with them. You're working with the hunters. Oh, you're terrible, right? You're against animals.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you're working with the vegans. Oh,
Yeah.
You hate, the animal people, the animal hunters. So I can see how this would happen over time. I mean, it kind of makes sense to me a little bit more now.
Oh yeah, and people are like, oh, you guys will defend Nazis. You guys are a bunch of Nazis. And like, my name is Zach Greenberg, right? I'm not the biggest spokesperson for the Nazi Party in America, right. But it's the principle, right? We defend everybody. Everyone has the right to free speech.
Yeah, listen, man, I'm Israeli. I totally get it. So, you don't even have to explain it. But I mean, it makes sense. I mean, it totally makes sense. And I'm glad that there are people out there that are protecting First Amendment and protecting everybody's rights. I think it's great. Now, speaking about fraternities and sororities, there's this really high profile case where in June of 2020, Harvard University said that it would discontinue its policy of sanctioning students who joined single-sex clubs. And they were citing a lawsuit by a group of U.S. fraternities and sororities who said that the crackdown amounted to sexual discrimination. Now, the policy at issue was adopted in 2016 and then enforced in 2017. And under the policy, students who joined single-sex clubs at Harvard could not serve as captains of sports teams or leaders of officially recognized student clubs, and they couldn't even receive endorsement letters from the Harvard College deans for any of their postgraduate fellowships. Now, Sigma Chi, SAE, sororities Kappa Alpha Theta and Kappa Kappa Gamma, they all sued Harvard in 2018. They said that Harvard was discriminating against students on the basis of their sex. Now, this was, viewed as a victory in court because ultimately the fraternities and sororities, quote unquote, won. What are the implications of this particular victory?
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. It's a really interesting high-profile case, right? You have Harvard University, which is probably the most prominent university in the world, where the universities take their cues from, saying very clearly that these single-gendered organizations were not welcome on campus. And the people that donate organizations are not good individuals, that they should not be given any sort of the same rights and privileges as other students. And this is pretty egregious because the freedom of association is a core right of fundamental right of the First Amendment, fundamental right that Harvard promises its students in its official policies. It's not bound by the First Amendment, it's still a private school. And it makes these promises to its students. And so to simply attack all these organizations, lump them in the same bundle, saying, look, what you're doing here by excluding people of different genders is wrong and awful, really sends a very chilling message to students saying, look, you can't have these groups. These groups will be punished. These groups will be ostracized on campus. And it's funny because the policy wasn't popular when it was imposed, right? You're talking about groups that have existed for hundreds of years, that have done hundreds of millions of dollars of philanthropy, have really helped out the university in many ways, shapes, and forms in the community. And it did not pass a faculty vote. It wasn't a very transparently adopted policy. The university said that sororities could simply lie about their status and still retain their rights and privileges. And that Harvard lost both in the court of public opinion and in court. This policy was not popular. It was not something that was welcome by the student body, and it was really an egregious attack on students' free speech and freedom of association rights. And we're glad to see that it was definitely that it was rescinded, and other universities are now also considering not adopting a similar policy. But it did take a lawsuit. It took a lot of pressure and took a lot of work from the groups and from the attorneys to really get Harvard to see how misguided this policy was.
Yeah, that did take quite a while, but I'm glad that we eventually landed where we needed to land. And that's a huge victory. I mean, I think you're right. I think the other universities, the other colleges certainly look to Harvard to say, okay, what is the right action here? And had we lost that, whether it be in the court of public opinion or in court, then, that would have been a disaster, I think, for fraternities and sororities, no question about that. And, there's lots of examples that we can look at lots of different campuses. I don't want anybody to think that I am picking on any particular campus. I just think it's helpful to look at particular cases to understand what can we learn from that? Like, what are the implications of that to other campuses? Because again, it's not about picking on anybody. It's just about saying, what can we learn and what does that mean for higher ed, I guess, is a better way of putting it. And so, as an example, the students at LSU recently experienced the suppression of their First Amendment rights. What kinds of things did you see there? And what can be done about some of these suppression of First Amendment rights?
Yeah, this goes back to a while at LSU. I believe it was 2017, where a student tragically died in a fraternity-related event. And because of this, LSU cracked down on a host of students' rights, whether their right to wear their letters, to tailgate, even for religious groups, to religious sororities and fraternities to have religious gatherings. Just it was Yom Kippur, I believe, during that time. They couldn't gather, they couldn't have their assemblies and whatnot. And it's really tragic because universities have an obligation to protect their student bodies, right? But at the same time, they have an obligation to protect students' rights. And there are many ways that they can accomplish these objectives. They can educate, they can have seminars, they can have trainings and whatnot, but to simply cast a blanket ban upon all groups saying that you shall not gather, you shall not wear letters, you shall not have your rights, doesn't really do anything to advance the cause of student safety, but it does have serious impacts of students' expressive rights. We see this very commonly in universities, this guilt by association approach. If one group that has Greek letters in its name commits misconduct, they punish the entire system. And it's really bad because this only really applies to Greek organizations. You don't see the College Democrats getting punished for the College Republicans, or the chess club being punished for the swim team's misconduct. But seemingly all these Greek organizations are lumped in one bundle here. And that's really awful because students have the right to be free from punishment if they did nothing wrong. Students should only be punished if they actually were proven to have committed misconduct, and groups just the same. And to punish the wide array of groups because they simply share an association with one another is really antithetical to the First Amendment and to the notion of free speech and freedom of association in American society.
Yeah. Well, listen, I certainly agree with you there. And I understand the students' frustrations when an entire Greek system gets shut down. They're looking at the student code of conduct and they're like, wait a minute, this is something that happened to an individual student. And then, so where in the student code of conduct does it say that the entire Greek system is going to be shut down, right? So I think that there are some problems there. Certainly, we can look at that. But also, listen, as somebody who has been around the block within the fraternity and sorority community, I can certainly play devil's advocate with you. And the devil's advocate is to basically take the position and basically say, listen, you're a member of Pike. I'm a member, I joined a fraternity at the University of Buffalo. We took an oath at the altar to conduct ourselves a certain way. We committed to certain values, right? The chess team never made that commitment to certain values. The football team never took that oath to scholarship and community service and chivalry and brotherhood and sisterhood, but we did, right? So, I understand where you're going in terms of First Amendment rights, but I also think that when the media calls out fraternities and sororities for an injury or, God forbid, a death, that's just basically the opposite of what the fraternities and sororities are supposed to be doing, right?
Yeah, that's a really good point. I feel like the university has an obligation to protect students. Also, the groups have an obligation to protect their own members, to hold themselves to a higher standard, to be this model group on campus. But the issue is a matter of due process. It's a matter of making sure that students who commit misconduct are punished, and those who don't do anything wrong are let go. We had a case at Greenberg University where because of issues with fraternity, the university disbanded the entire Greek-like system. And we had a sorority that was a local group, has no record of misconduct, yet still lost its charter because they had Greek letters in their name. And the issue is that how are these groups supposed to hold each other accountable when they're separate organizations? You know, how is Pike supposed to hold TKE accountable when there's two separate groups, separate leadership structures, separate organizational accountability mechanisms? So I think the issue here is that universities have to really be specific, and they have to be clear in how they dispense discipline. And if you're going to hold groups accountable, you have to hold the groups that actually commit misconduct accountable, and let go of those that are actually being good apples and trying to uphold the system and hold people to a higher standard.
Yeah, all fair points. I will take that. And you know what? The universities also have their own values. People might not know that, but you can do research for a university and look up their core values as well. So as a student, in theory, you know, if they accept you, you're supposed to be exemplifying those values, right? It's not just the fraternities and sororities, but I appreciate the back and forth. I appreciate, you know, good debate. I think you and I agree on that. And you know what? Listen, fraternities and sororities, the entire reason why they started on college campuses in the late 1800s, the early 1900s, is to have debate, because they weren't being allowed to discuss these issues freely on a college campus. So they just said, hey, let's just meet off campus as a group and then debate whatever the heck we want.
Yeah, definitely. The history of fraternity and sorority is really interesting, right? These groups are founded for philanthropic purposes, to support their members. So we have a group where they can just, you know, come and talk to each other. They actually have a society of people that have like values, that share this common commitment to the group's mission statement, and which is a beautiful thing. That's what college should be. A bunch of student groups operating, you know, independently and having their own devices and having their mission statements. That's I mean, some universities have, like, I think Cornell, where my brother went, has like 1,000 student groups. So whatever you do in the campus, you can have people that think the same way you do, that you can actually just associate with and have a good time there. And it hasn't really changed in a number of years, and it's been a successful system. And yeah, there are some bad apples out there, but on the whole, you know, by and by, sororities and fraternities have been a force for good when it comes to universities and their effect on students and their effect on their communities.
Yeah, I agree with you completely there. I mean, I think we need to do a deeper dive in terms of graduation rates, you know, in terms of GPA, in terms of philanthropy dollars. I mean, you know, fraternity and sorority, it really is the best leadership experience on any college campus by any metric. Now, are there problems? Yeah, sure there are. There are problems with all students, you know, on college campuses. There's a problem with the dorm. I mean, you know, there are problems all over the place, and we're working to fix that. I freely admit that there are problems. That's why I'm there on college campuses, to help educate and give students the resources they need to fix these very real issues. But at the end of the day, I think, you know, throwing, you know, the baby out with the bathwater type of analogy, you know, I think that we are very aligned with the university's mission, with the university's goals. And I do think that fraternity and sorority anchors both of us to our institutions, which is ultimately what you want. And then we're creating leaders that are more engaged at work. I mean, just look at the data, and I'd be glad to share that with any of the listeners. There's actual data that proves that we are more engaged as fraternity and sorority leaders on our, you know, at our place of employment. And I think we're also much bigger fans of our university. I mean, we are loyal to the university, and we keep coming back for homecoming and everything else. You're coming back to see Pike grow at Binghamton, and I think that anchors you to the university.
Yeah, I mean, Greek University and FIRE are similar. We want to help the groups, help the university. We're all in the same boat here, right? No one wants to see these groups breaking university rules and breaking laws and doing bad things. We want to support the groups, support the university, make sure the students have everything they need to be functional organizations. And that's what we want to do.
I love it. Now, if you're a listener to this podcast right now, you're a college student, how do you spot signs of restrictive speech policies at your own campus? And then how can you help to educate the campus community about it?
Sure. There's really two things. The first is that we try to make sure students are aware of content-based restrictions. If your group is being told that you can say X but not Y, you have to use these letters, not those letters. Really, anything that has to go with the actual content, the viewpoints, the opinions that you're being expressed, those are red flags for us. Those are restrictive rules, speech codes, we call them, policies that restrict free speech in college campuses that are probably not okay, that we want to hear about. And it's not just for you, it's for any sort of student groups, professors, other students out there that are faced with these rules. We want to hear about them. And the second thing is that if you're not sure, contact FIRE. We're here, we're First Amendment attorneys. We do this for a living. This is my day. This is my dream job. I love doing this. And every morning I come in like ready to get to work. It's great. So if you're a student and you're not sure if this rule is or is not okay, you're not sure if this regulation is going to be an issue or not, contact FIRE. The FIRE.org. We are here. We will get back to you and we will be able to figure this out for you.
I love it. Now, you're based in Philly, and we do love good food here at the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. I know you have good food in Philly. So what's your favorite restaurant these days in Philly?
So many good restaurants in Philadelphia. I can't name them all. Philadelphia is the restaurant capital of the world, in my opinion. But for those who like really authentic fried chicken, Red Crest Fried Chicken in South Philly, open pretty much 24/7, extra buffalo chicken sandwich. I love that. For those less inclined, we have one of the best vegan restaurants in the world, Veg, right in Center City. They have their carrots, which is the most decadent thing you can ever imagine. The sauce is in there. It feels like you're eating like a filet mignon. So good this carrot is. The main course of the meal. It's one of the best things I've ever had, and I'm a carnivore. I eat everything. So highly recommend Veg and Red Crest Fried Chicken. They're not sponsored me at all. Just big fans of those restaurants. And definitely check them out if you're going to be in Philadelphia.
Yeah, this is how you know it's a good restaurant, when multiple guests from Philly are all recommending Veg. You're like, what is this about a vegetarian restaurant that makes it so good? Because I'm a carnivore too, and you're speaking my language. I mean, you're talking about buffalo chicken. I mean, I went to school in Buffalo. Believe
the
me,
best.
I'm desperate for some good buffalo chicken. But you know what? I live in Nashville now, and they have some pretty good barbecue there too.
Oh, absolutely. So, good barbecue down there. I miss the Southern barbecue. Yeah, we had dinosaur barbecue in Syracuse, also excellent. But I do miss the that kind of food.
Yeah, it is good stuff. All right. So if students who are listening, if they want more information about FIRE, maybe they want to contact you to discuss a particular case that's going on their campus, where should they go?
Sure. Real easy. The FIRE.org. It's our website. And on there, you can submit a case. You can contact us. We have guides about students' rights, free speech, due process, all the information you want right there. We have case archives. We have our entire staff page. It's all right there. The FIRE.org. Check it out. If you submit an email there, I will get it. I will respond back to you. I would be happy to answer any question you have about Greek life, students' rights, free speech. This is my role. This is my job at FIRE. I love it. And we want to hear from you. We really hope that the fraternities and sororities do defend their rights. We want to help them out. We're here to defend your rights, to make sure that you remain free from censorship and administrative abuse.
We appreciate the work that you do, Zach. Thank you so much. To our listeners, we hope that you enjoyed it. Feel free to like it, to share it with other fraternity and sorority members on a college campus. And thank you for your time, Zach. I really appreciate the work you do.
You got it. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. And to our listeners, thanks so much for listening. We'll see you on another episode of the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. Thanks so much. Bye for now.